Oh boy, my first time tanking. This is going to be awesome. Here we go.
Oh my god, this flippin' noob tank.
This tank sucks, can we kick?
Does this guy have fingers?
So a lot of you enjoyed the video I made a while back about tank anxiety. As someone who still gets tank anxiety every now and then, this is a topic that really intrigues me and I really like talking about stuff like this. So today I wanted to dive into why people get tank anxiety and how people get tank anxiety. What up everyone, my name is Astro. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let's get right into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is the increased responsibility of the tanking and healing roles. So a lot of people think that tanks and healers have a lot more responsibility than DPS when it comes to the success of your team or the demise of your team. People believe that these are extremely important roles and if not done correctly, it can lead to catastrophic results. Whether tanking and healing is actually more important than DPS is a debate for another day, but this is the general perception of people who have tank or healing anxiety. When you look at the responsibilities of a tank, number one, they have to maintain the pace of a dungeon, they have to mitigate damage, they have to aggro mobs, and they have to position the boss while doing damage at the same time. Meanwhile, the job of a healer is to keep the raid alive, but also still do damage at the same time. As you can see, there's a lot going on there, and there's a lot of responsibilities that people have to deal with when they're in these roles. This responsibility makes people feel like the weight of the world is on their shoulders. Whether the raid succeeds or fails is based on their doing. So then what happens when you absolutely up the bed in these roles? Well, I'm glad you asked, because that leads me to my next point, the fear of failure. Because of that heightened sense of responsibility, people are afraid that if they mess up, the reason that the raid or dungeon fails is because of them. People feel very pressured to perform because they know the outcome of others is on them. And this is where the sense of anxiety really develops, because they think, oh shoot, if I mess up, we're just gonna wipe and everyone's gonna die. Because of that, you start questioning yourself and you don't know what to do because you're afraid that whatever move you make, you'll mess up. And like I said earlier, because there's so much more responsibility, there's more points of failure. Like if you think about it, if you go into a dungeon as a tank, you could mess up, you could just not have your tank stance on, you could not aggro a mob by accident, you could make so many different mistakes, and people are really afraid of that because these are very visible mistakes and other people can see you mess up. So there's an element of maybe embarrassment and shame because you are messing up in front of people and it is so visible. Instead of focusing on learning, you're more focused on not making mistakes, which is not the way you learn. In order to learn, you have to make mistakes. So the mindset is a little bit different, which causes that anxiety. While yes, messing up in front of other people is embarrassing, you have to understand that you are human and making mistakes is part of the learning process. So to summarize, I think the reason that the anxiety forms is because of the lack of embrace of the failure process. You're kind of focusing on trying to do everything right and making sure you don't make mistakes, but you should also be focusing on learning from your mistakes if you do make them and realize that it is okay to make mistakes. And having this be a group activity where you're working with other people exacerbates the issue because you're failing in front of other people. But that leads me to my next point. You're afraid of failing in front of other people and you're afraid of the consequences of failing in front of other people. Did someone say letting others down? Well, I'll have you know, I am quite an expert at that. All jokes aside though, when you mess up, not only are you messing up in front of other people, but you're also worried about what they're gonna say. I'm sure we've all had that experience, either firsthand or watching the poor tank or healer from the sidelines where they mess up and someone in the team is basically just flaming the crap out of them, spewing toxic just everywhere, just saying like garbage tank, learn how to tank, oh my god, this healer has no fingers, all kinds of stuff like that. And this still goes back to the fear of failure, right? Because if you fail and then you get flamed for failing, you're gonna be even more worried about failing in the future because you want to avoid being flamed. It's not nice to be flamed, it doesn't feel good, right? So you want to avoid that at all costs. And whether it happened to you or you saw it happen to someone else in the dungeon, you're afraid that it's gonna happen happen to you, and that's a possibility. I talked about this in my other video, but the reason why I get anxiety is because of a previous experience I had in World of Warcraft when I tried tanking for the first time. I had no idea what I was doing. I had looked up some guides, but I had gone in pretty raw, and I made so many mistakes, and the whole entire dungeon just flamed the crap out of me. They made fun of me. They gave me shit, all this stuff. I could barely even finish the dungeon, right? And I felt really terrible afterwards, and it gave me such a negative experience going forward. So much so that I had refused to touch tank until I started playing Final Fantasy. Like, you see that situation in your mind, and you're worried it's gonna happen again, and it creates a sense of dread, because if it does happen again, then you're gonna feel bad again. So really, I think it comes down to a few things. Number one, increased level of responsibility, fear of failure, worried about what other people are gonna say, and also previous negative experiences that could shape your perception of what's going to happen next time. I think understanding why things happen is so important to solving them, because then you understand the basics of how it works, so then you can start constructing a plan to solve it. So these reasons were more formulated around my experience and how I got tank anxiety. But if you have experienced tank anxiety or healing anxiety and have other reasons why it's caused, please let me know, because I'd love to know the reasons why anxiety is caused in games like this. I'll catch you guys next time.